WFLA Now. Feel good and live your best life with Bloom Health Club. Here's Gail Guayardo.
As many of us resolve to get fit this new year, Jac Cordeiro, the founder and CEO of JACFIT 5 a.m. Club, is on a mission to help women become the best versions of themselves. Jac, it is so great to see you. Welcome to the Bloom Health Club.
Thanks for having me back. I love being here.
This is so great. And I want to include our producer, Sarah Smith, in on the conversation. She's switching the show for us today. Hey, Sarah.
This is so awesome. Good to see you again.
Hi, sir. Yes, likewise.
All right, so let's talk about your fitness revolution. You have found a way to make exercise more interesting, engaging, and just to get people up and moving.
Absolutely. I mean, you're going to stick to something if you enjoy it, right? If you think it's daunting and it's a task and you have to check off all these boxes, it's not going to last very long.
So you created JACFIT during the pandemic, and it was a virtual, sweep of the country to get people working out in their homes.
Yeah, because, it was a dark time for everyone. I mean, there was limited human interaction. You couldn't go and, let out your steam at the gym because the doors were locked everywhere. And I just, I was working as an end-of-life end-of-life oncology nurse at the time. And I wasn't even able to see my clients in real time. And these people were passing. And I just felt like, what is going on? My bucket is not being filled. And I almost feel like I might be suffering from, depression if I don't do something. And I had two young girls at home, recently divorced, and just kind of going, okay, the world is falling apart. And this is not going to be what my life is setting out to do. And it was the unknown, right? We all were like, when is this going to go back to normal? Right. So I was always an athlete. I was, at the time, I was a freelance writer for Oxygen Magazine. I competed several times, and I loved fitness. And I used to do like a side hustle kind of thing, aside from my role as being an RN. And, helping with nutrition plans and training plans, and just really trying to help other women that came to me because they're like, well, Jac, obviously, you look like you know what you're doing in the gym and you look great. What is it you're doing? And it's just starting with conversations and, taking that part of the nursey part that you take, and you just kind of do an assessment and you ask them the questions that are needed so that you can design something that's specific for them, because there's no cookie cutter anything. And when it comes to health and fitness, I believe you can't give someone the same plan I would give you that I would give Sarah, right?
Yeah.
So, I just started to spend, I was obviously more time at home, and having to homeschool, I would spend my off hours from my job, and I would write down programs, and people were like, hey, Jac, can you write me something to work out at home? There's limited equipment here. So I started creating a training program that required zero equipment. And it was mostly body weight or things like, if you have a tub of laundry detergent in your house, you can use that for squats. You don't need a kettlebell. Like just being, or if you have monkey bars in the backyard that are your children, that's a perfect place to start trying to learn how to do a pull-up or a chin-up. So it just kind of snowballed from there. And it was, 4 or 5 clients locally. And then I would do check-ins virtually because everything was virtual at the time, right? We all went to virtual. So I started doing weekly check-ins, and it kind of just became something, like you said, like a revolutionary way of doing things. And, it's my focus is really to capture the essence of improving the mentality, because then the physical just follows. So those check-ins are a mental check-in. The cardio is looked at as a mental start, the way to start your day, as opposed to just getting those calories burned. And then the strength training, I really focused on teaching my clients mind to muscle connection, because that's really, really key, right?
Yeah.
With that, because that's really how you get to learn A, form, B, how to prevent yourself from injury, and C, how to really get the most out of that muscle.
Yeah, there's a lot of people ego lifting out there.
Yes. I always tell them, check.
Dangerous.
It's true. The biggest men in the gym, I'm like, check your ego at the door, because if you're not even lifting full range or using full use of that muscle, you're kind of wasting your time in the gym. So it's really about, just really focusing, getting that breath in, and being present where you're at, and really putting the most of it in it.
And Sarah and I were talking about this in the Bloom office as we were, preparing for your arrival, which of course we're so excited that you're back in the Tampa Bay area. And we always love it when someone is in the health and fitness space that has a different lens, and you can look at it from the medical standpoint too.
Yeah.
I mean, down to looking at somebody's blood work. And you and I talked about this because we're trying to figure out ways to work with Jac on a regular basis and maybe handling some of the issues that I'm dealing with now at 58, where I'm really into strength training. I'm a clean eater, but now I just want to take it to the next level and build some muscle. Is it possible
Absolutely.
at my age?
Absolutely, it's possible. And you have to feed the beast. I tell this to Alex all the time. He's like, why are you calling me a beast? I'm like, I call everyone a beast. No, what I mean by that is when you work out, make sure that you're consuming those proper macros at least an hour after you lift. Feed, recovery, all the things. You have to be able to know that your body is not going to do what you want it to do if you're not going to feed it the proper amount of calories and the proper amount of macros. Right?
Protein though, right? Too.
Yeah.
Protein, but moreover, carbohydrates. People are so afraid of carbohydrates, and that is your energy source, right? Your protein is building blocks. We all know that, right? Building blocks of muscle and all the things. But your carbohydrates are going to give you the fuel, first of all, for energy, and then you're going to help recovery process, all the things. But if you don't have I always look at them. Proteins and carbohydrates are married. Your fats are like your children, right? You have to be strong and aligned with each other. And then you add in the fat here and there. So yeah, your carbohydrates are going to be the difference between you having a great workout or not. If you're not eating the proper amount of fuel, your workouts are going to suffer. Your sleep's going to suffer. Your thought process is going to suffer. Everything's going to suffer. So we really have to start really paying attention to what we're putting in our bodies, especially when it comes to carbohydrates.
Would you say it's like an 80-20 rule? Because that's something that I've learned where it's 80% your diet, 20% working out.
Yeah.
Would you subscribe to that too?
Yes. And that's funny you say that. I do teach my clients the 80-20 rule. So 80% of the time, I would say if your diet and your training's in check, you're good. That 20% might mean that you're going to go out, Sarah, with your partner and you're going to have a nice steak dinner or whatever, and maybe a glass of wine, but maybe defer the bread and the dessert. Something a little bit off of the regular menu 80% of the time, is just something enough to kind of make you, enjoy. You still have to enjoy life, right? It can't be an all or nothing mentality, because when you do that, you set yourself up for failure. But yes, 80-20 rule is definitely something that is a strong model in the JACFIT program.
And in the JACFIT program, you work with people individually if they want that. Like you will talk to them, look at their diary, their food diary, because you believe just as we write down our thoughts, we should be writing down what we're eating and how we're feeling throughout the day.
Absolutely.
And then you analyze that and come up with the perfect fitness regimen that includes the mind, the body, the soul, the food, everything.
Yeah, everything relates to everything. So it's all connected. So a diary in most people's mind, they're like, oh, your thoughts at night, does he love me? Does he not? I don't know. That kind of thing. It's not necessarily. It's like, do I love myself enough? What am I doing enough to get what I want out of my life? If it's a physical goal or a mental goal. So a lot of my clients, as soon as they enter the program, I'm like, get used to getting a journal and document and make that part of your nighttime routine before you go to bed. Empty out and unpack those thoughts so that tomorrow morning you don't have them weighing on you and you have a game plan. So when we come to our check-ins, bring your journals, bring your diaries, clients, because I want you to refer to those, because those are the nuggets that you forget when you are presented with questions from a person like self or Gail. Like, when it's like to interview someone, you maybe there's a little bit of nerve involved, so you forget some of the things. If you have a diary, and I always tell people, the things that you need to maybe redo, highlight those ones throughout the week so that you go to the highlighted versions. Because I don't want to know, yes, of course I want to know how great you're doing, but the conversation has to be about the things that you want to redo, because those redos are the very things that we need to really get down in detail and see what is it that you could be doing better. So for example, when I have clients going, I don't know why I'm not losing weight. I feel like I'm kind of stuck. I'm like, well, tell me what you ate the last 3 days. Let's go through that. Either A, they're under eating, or B, they're forgetting about those little things that they're putting in their mouths throughout the day that they're not remembering, or they're choosing not to remember. Right. So those journals are really, really key to your success until you get a good hold on what your new lifestyle is. And then it becomes second nature.
I think it's good for accountability.
Absolutely.
Oh, without a doubt.
That's, I feel like, the hardest part is if you say you're going to do one thing and you don't have the discipline muscle yet, you're not going to have the accountability. But with the journal, And with someone like you have that.
Of course.
Someone to hold you accountable.
Yeah. And you teach, it's self-reliance, right? So you're going, okay, well, Jac is my coach and I check in with her once a week, and I can get a hold of her whenever I need to, or my other coaches that are on staff. But it's really has to be about you and your self-regulation at some point. And that's how your goals will be sustainable, and you'll have a long-term plan. That's
really good. And I'm glad you mentioned the secret times of the day. I remember when I was back in the lunch packing era of my kids. Now they handle their own food because everybody's grown up. But I would remember it was a chip here. It was a little nibble of peanut butter there. And those kinds of little things, they start to add up over time.
They sure do. And it's funny you say that. So this is a hack. Okay. We talked about hacks earlier. You have to have several of them if you want to be successful in life. So I can attest, I have a 12 and a 13-year-old, and yes, I'm making lunches. And I have a lot of moms that are in the community that have this problem. They're like, wow, my kids don't eat all their lunch, and I'm unpacking it. And then all of a sudden I'm in the goldfish and I'm eating them, and I'm trying to, I said, you know what? Make sure that when you decide to make lunches, do it after you've eaten dinner.
Smart. Oh, that's a good idea.
Really
that's a great hack.
Right? And then you won't be tempted to take out whatever crumbs are left in the lunchbox.
It's like not going to the grocery store when
you're hungry. Yeah, exactly. You mentioned the kids, and you also mentioned Alex earlier. For our viewers that don't know, you're a really like entrepreneurial woman. You're growing JACFIT. You've got these two beautiful daughters, and you've got this great relationship with the legendary Alex Rodriguez, otherwise known as A-Rod. And there were lots of sightings of him here in the Tampa Bay area during spring training times.
Yeah. Yeah. You know, it's whether it's my children that are influenced by the JACFIT brand, or Alex, he's lost over 35 pounds. Even his daughters as well. When we're all together, it's nothing for them to like, let's go to the gym. His eldest, they're Tashi, we'll hit the gym, and she's a beast too. She can lift, and Ella too as well. Like it's like when you're setting an example, everyone jumps on board eventually. I tell clients all the time, you may not know it, and you may think that people aren't supporting you, but silently you're becoming an influencer in your own home. And then once you set that pathway, everyone else will jump on board because they'll see how much energy you have. They'll see the vibration that you're giving off, and people are attracted to that. Right?
Yeah.
So it's a real thing. It's not just about the end goal of losing X amount of weight.
And I think it's really interesting that you transformed the body of a former MLB player who, was obviously on top of his game when you look at his record.
Of course.
Yet when you guys met, you were like, you noticed you went out hiking, he was a little out of breath, and you're like, wait a minute, we got to fix that.
Yeah. Yeah. So he was a little fluffier when I met him, like 35 or 40 pounds lighter, or heavier, I should say. But it's a myth, right? People think just because you're a pro athlete, like you should be in this stellar shape all the time. Well, and it's not true. So they're so fixated on their craft and their skill and how to be the best at what they do and what they bring to the table. They aren't chefs. They're not physiotherapists. They're not medical doctors, and they're not trainers. Their specialty is what they're a goat in, right? So if it's baseball for Alex, it's baseball. So they don't really have the time to learn about what macros are and what they need to eat pre and post. I mean, maybe they have an idea, but after you retire, if you haven't instilled those practices and you haven't learned that, chances are it's probably going to fall off, right? And then you have to rely on yourself on how to get that back. So yeah, it's education mostly, but it's also just wanting the will to want to learn. Right. So it doesn't matter how much money, how little money. It has to do with the fact that you have to really want to invest in yourself and learn the process.
I love that. And you really believe, especially as women, we have to take the time to invest in ourselves, because the very things that are draining us are typically people that we love very, very much. And if we want to be there for them, we have to do that. And back in the day, you were right. Like we were talking about this earlier, because Jac is on our globally syndicated health and wellness show, Bloom. And she and I were talking about how as women, many times we feel guilty if we give a little time and attention to ourselves.
Yeah, it's a shame really, because I feel though women have this cloud hanging over us, right? With respect to if I go to the gym in an hour and a half and I'm not home with the kids, I feel guilty. If I go early in the morning, that means I have to sacrifice, and the word sacrifice just gets me every time, sacrifice my sleep to get up and hit that button at 5 a.m. and get up and go. First of all, it's an investment. Change your nighttime routine. When you're getting up and you're going to do your thing, you're going to be a better mom. Like when I get home and it's like a little bit after 7, I go upstairs, I'm jumping on these girls' beds and I'm like, get up, mom's here, let's go to school. And it really does set the energy. So then they're picking up on that. They're going to school with that energy. They're better for their friends. Their teachers are loving them because they're engaged and they're wanting to do all the things. And it just levels up their life. Your partner in life, I mean, like, let's be honest. If you're in great shape and you have the energy and you guys both feel great about yourselves physically, your romantic life levels up. So just because you're taking the time to put into yourself, that it's not selfish, that is self-full, and you're going to get so much more out of your life, and everyone else is going to get only the best version of you.
I love that.
Because you can't pour from an empty cup.
Exactly. Yeah.
Did you always have the discipline, especially with the 5 a.m.? Like, that's early.
You know what? Yeah, that is early. Yes, because I've always really loved, I was an athlete growing up, and I've always been a morning person. But I mean, I'm going to tell you, like, working 7 to 7 in an ER,
that's right.
That's when I first started my nursing career, and it was border Detroit City. So we had some really crazy nights in there. Whereas if you weren't on full tilt, you were going to fall behind real quick. So I know that from experience that when I didn't train, when I went into work, I wasn't the best nurse and people weren't getting the best version of me. And I certainly wasn't in the mindset to want to do that extra. You know, which with a nurse, you really have to put that extra in.
Yeah.
So, but yeah, no, I just feel that it sets the tone and it gives you more, more energy going into something when you've already hit the play button.
Right.
Right. You're on full throttle, your metabolism's burning and it's at a steady state. Now, there's that little part of the time, we were talking about this earlier, right? With that little time in the day where you kind of have that lull where your energy kind of starts to deplete. Mm-hmm. There's ways to be able to get around that. And it's about certain foods to feed your body to be able to stay at that energy level. Or remove yourself from the environment and do something physical for at least 20 minutes. And go out and do a walk outside, go do some push-ups. So you'll see people in the office sometimes, and especially when I was working in the ER, they're like, I'm going to go do my 20-minute reset, Jac. I'm like laughing.
I love it.
But it does. It helps. But physical activity is always going to be the best way to handle stress because the alternative is what? Drugs, alcohol, or other things that aren't productive.
Exactly. So talk me through, because I want, like I was saying earlier, I want to start doing this real time with our viewers and with you. So like after we're done with this podcast, Jac and I are going to head over to Rolling Oats, which is kind of a neighborhood health and wellness grocery store. We're going to pick up some ingredients. We're going to be cooking those on the show tomorrow. Then we're going to go to my backyard. We're going to work out a little bit. But when somebody meets with you, Jac, and they want that one-on-one attention, how does that protocol look from start to finish?
So like anything, when you're introduced to a new person, you want to know the main things about them, right? So I'll take the moment out and we'll talk about, what's your background? What's your health history? What medications are you taking? Do you have any limitations? Have you been in any accidents? Do you have any injuries? Pre-existing injuries I need to know about. When was your last mammogram? Have you had a PAP done? Are you taking care of yourself? Have you had an annual checkup with your physician? These things are so important. These are baseline foundational things that we need to be responsible for as adults. Once those questions are, I have collected that information, then we kind of go into, okay, well, have you ever struggled from an eating disorder? I need to know that too, because I need to know what I'm going into, right? Because there's certain things that I need to be sensitive to. And then, you go into, well, what are your likes? What are your dislikes? Are you a cardio queen, or do you like to pick things up and put them down? That kind of thing. So it gives me an understanding as to what I know, what you're going to like. So then I can design something that's going to be, something you're going to enjoy and want to stick to. And then food. Is there intolerances? Are there allergies? Do you have aversions or anything? Are you looking into wanting to go maybe more plant-based instead of animal-based? There's a lot of questions that are involved, but it's an assessment really of a client, just to get a good snapshot of what it is that I'm working with and what is going to be beneficial for them in the long run.
Which is so important because, and Sarah knows this, I talk about it a lot on the show, that I was diagnosed with hypothyroidism. And I was literally at the gym 7 days a week, running uphill on a treadmill, running outside. And my doctor's like, you cannot do that because your thyroid gland is already desperate and you're just sending it into overdrive. So, the fact that you take the time and the energy to look at somebody's, really talk to them and use your medical lens from all your years in the ER and working with, in oncology, having that knowledge is critical for a tailored program.
Absolutely. Because so the fitness world is saturated. There's a coach for everything. There's a lifestyle coach, there's a fitness coach, there's a stage prep kind of physique, bodybuilding coach. There's all kinds of things. I don't really label myself as anything. I just look at people as a whole. And this probably comes back to like Florence Nightingale when I was in theory class in university for nursing school. It's you have to look at a person as the entity of mind, body, and soul if you really want them to be at their best. So you have to take all the pieces. It can't just be a few and then just go from there and make something. Yeah.
All right. Okay. So after you take the intake, what happens next?
So then what we do is we go over a nutrition plan and a training plan. And I have, if there's any questions about things that you don't know or you need clarification on, we unpack that. And then we'll go through your routine of how you're going to plug those in throughout your week so that it makes sense and that you're going to be able to commit to it. Okay. And then the other thing is I won't push the 5 a.m., but I'll say, what could be your 5 a.m.? Is it 7 a.m. or is it like 6:30? And then eventually people go, no, you know what? I'm going to try the 5 a.m. And you know what? If I put money on it, many times the client's like, there's no way I'm going to do 5 a.m., Jac. Not going to do it. Not going to happen. Guess what? They end up being a 5 a.m.er. Why? Because they understand the benefit of getting up early in the stillness when nothing else is out or there's, no other humans out there in the world except for energy from nature. And it's all yours to take. And it's just a really, really great feeling. And it makes people feel like they're superhuman. So slowly but surely we get to those little goals, but I don't expect that off the hop. Absolutely. It's a progressive approach. Yeah.
So you're more for working out in the morning than doing it in the afternoon or the
Absolutely.
evening.
Absolutely. Because there's 100 excuses why not to. And then you have that residual anxiety hanging over your head all day. Like, I still got to get my lift in. I still got to go to the gym. Did I pack my stuff? I got to go home now. Like, there's going to be a million things.
That's exactly what I think too.
Yeah.
I have to do it in the morning.
Yeah.
Otherwise it won't happen.
Right.
So even though, Jac, you started virtually, now you're doing pop-ups everywhere and you have a philanthropic side to you as well.
Yes. Yeah. So the boot camps are just like I said, a pop-up. We, I'll throw one out there and we get, women, holding a spot in there. So they come, we do a 45-minute crush of a workout. And then we do a lot of self-care circle exercise where we kind of talk about things and just kind of really make sure that we nurture, the soul and the mind part as well. So we get that in, but those are really better. I love those. Those are like my favorite part.
And then you raise money for the Boys and Girls Club.
Yes. So I do an annual summit every year, and this year we're raising money for Big Brothers and Big Sisters, and it's in the spirit of International Women's Week. So we're having it that week in Windsor, Ontario, and all the proceeds will go to Big Brothers Big Sisters, and it's just really a giant wine night with girlfriends. That's basically what it is.
I love it. Jac, how do we find you on social media and connect?
Well, I have a website, JACFIT.ca. On Instagram, I'm JAC_LYN fit. So Jacqueline Fit. And then TikTok is JACFIT. But yeah, you can reach me at any of those places. I will be more than happy to help
This
out.
has been awesome.
Yeah, it's been so great. Jac, thank you so much.
Yes, thank you for having me.
All
Thanks,
right.
Sarah.